Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I think this is our real 11th podcast episode or 12th. Um, but I'm your host or co-host, Ethan Vargas. Our other co-host is Daniel Labuda. How you doing, Danny?
Amazing as always.
Our special guest today is Evan Wachula of the swimming team at Notre Dame. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Ethan.
That's great. And then we have our swimmingly great moderator, Mr. Ogg. How you doing?
Swimmingly. Wow, how appropriate.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's appropriate because our topic of today's podcast is swimming, the sport of swimming, the science behind it. And I personally cannot swim. I just sink every time I get into the pool or wherever I am. So that's kind of fun. But
Should have
Evan,
joined the aqua.
you're saying I should join it anyways?
You should have joined.
Oh, well, I kind of didn't feel like that was a good fit. But I heard you did very well this year, right, Evan?
Yeah, I did pretty well.
That's very good. You broke some school records, right?
Yeah, two of them. Actually, no, three of them.
It's insane, man. I think the first thing you had a interesting fact or a data set.
Well, yeah, to kind of go along with what you said, like how you can't swim. I never really realized, like, I guess it's like part of our culture that, like, you just go to the pool someday and like everybody swims. But like when you actually think about it, not that, like, way less people can actually swim. And so I found this like interesting fact. It was according to the World Health Organization, there are an estimated 372,000 annual drowning deaths worldwide. I mean, like, obviously there's like high tide in like the ocean or lakes, things like that, but that's still like a pretty large amount of people that have drowned. And I also found something that said not more than 90% of drowning occurs in low and middle income countries, but in the United States, 45% of drowning deaths are among the most economically active segment of the population. So I just found that interesting.
Yeah, that is a large percentage of people. So it's definitely good if you can learn to swim. I've been trying, but it just wasn't I was just never successful. But getting back to the science behind swimming too. One thing I heard or read about was that there's a center of mass and there's a center of buoyancy in the body. And the center of buoyancy is about the lungs are because it's where they fill up with air. And so to kind of float, like I watched a video yesterday about like the science behind like floating, you want to expand or lower your center of buoyancy towards your center of mass. And I think you do this by raising your arms up. So like when you're floating on your back or on your stomach, you would fill your lungs with air and just kind of raise your arms up in the water, like parallel with your body or in line with your body. And so that's pretty interesting because I think I also in the same video, it talked about for buoyancy that everybody has like a different buoyancy depending on muscle percentage and body fat percentage as well. And muscle is not as buoyant as body fat. So that's pretty interesting how density in the body takes place. Evan, do you ever like worry about like just trying to stay afloat a lot? Like, is that like a major concern or no, because you've been doing it for so long?
I've been doing it for so long to where it's kind of second nature to me. But I like was thinking about it, and whenever I'm underwater, after pushing off a wall, I always hold my breath, even though like I don't need to, just to get myself to the surface of the water quicker. I never thought about it that way. And then also like what you said with bringing your arms up, that's like a technique that I was taught very young. So yeah, I don't really have to think about it too hard. I'm sure for like a newer swimmer like you it would be quite the challenge. But yeah,
That's really good for you. Labudi, do you want to talk about, or Evan, since you know, because you told me about it from your physics class with Mr. Og, about like
yes.
the specific science behind like how you like move in the water?
Okay. So from the fantastic AP Physics 1 with Mr. Og, we learned about Newton's 3 laws. The third law, the only important one, is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And Mr. Og's example for this was the sport of swimming, because every time you push on the water will push back at you and propel you forward. Then the same thing when you push off of a wall. When you push, you'll also have the wall pushing back onto you, and that'll make you go through the water. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And then I'm assuming this is also works for like track for you, Ethan, because you're pushing on the floor and the floor is pushing back up at you. Yeah.
I would just like to jump in very quickly and say that our physics class never took a stance on which was, quote, the best law or the only law. The whole point was that all of the laws are important. We don't have to pick one over the other. Otherwise, Evan, a fantastic summary, sir.
Mm-hmm. I paid attention in class, Mr. Og.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think the third law is pretty important. I think it's a pretty major law. I mean, they're all really major, but the third law might be the best. At least as you can tell with our stances in the podcast. But yeah, you're right, Evan. The third law does take place in like literally like everything that involves moving. So yeah, track does involve that too. Obviously, like I don't think about it super much because it's kind of just like running, but do you like focus on that more in swimming? Like making sure you have good form and good strong forces against the water.
Yeah, you're trying to grab as deep water as possible, which just means that the more still water that's there, because the top of the water is always moving due to you causing the ripples and stuff. So you try and grab the deeper water, which is more still, and grab as much as you can. Because did you guys take swim lessons when you were younger? And like they taught you the difference between having your hand like this and having your hand like in a cup?
Yeah, I took a few. I do remember learning about that.
Yeah, because if you have it like this, like you won't be grabbing anything. It'll just be your palm versus your whole hand. But yeah, and then also a lot of time in the weight room trying to be able to bulk up to push harder. Yeah, it's just a lot of pushing base workouts in there.
That makes a lot of sense. One from that same video I watched about like floating, it talked about how you just whenever you move in the water, you're displacing it, kind of like, and that makes sense. You displace the water as soon as you get in, but when you're moving, you're like pushing it down, and it ends up going upwards, but then gravity pushes it back towards you. So it's kind of like the goal of your body during floating is to like equal out that force so that the force of you pushing and gravity balance out so you stay afloat. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well, the science behind it. Mr. Og or Labuda, do you guys think some of the other laws of motion like take effect during swimming?
Absolutely. I am not here to say that one of the laws is better than the other. They all work in conjunction with each other. I think the idea of using, quote, push-based workouts, which I've never heard of before, but completely makes sense. I would say that's the second law, right? How so?
Because that's so the second law is force equals mass times acceleration. So um like when you're, how do I explain this? You're basically getting more force when you're like grabbing like the deeper still water. So I think that's why Evan like trains that. And first law, that's that an object at rest will stay at rest, and then unless acted upon by another force. So then you have to get energy to like move your body so that you have more momentum in the water and you could move faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And you constantly have an outside force working on you because the water is pushing against you. Evan, I have a question. So when one reaches such an accomplished level that we are setting records, and if I'm not mistaken, do I remember hearing that you broke your own record?
Yeah, I wasn't breaking any new records. I was just breaking my own over and over.
So when one gets to that point, and specifically for swimming, because I know the mindset is always, well, I can get better, right? And sort of most of the things that we do, it's always a matter of, well, what can I do next? What does one focus on to try to get faster? Are they like small things? Are they technique things? Where does one go from breaking one's own record, and how do you break the next record, which was set by you?
Um, for me, it's like part of my body is stronger than the others because my legs are pretty weak. So I've been focusing a lot more on like working on pushing, like squats and stuff. So like you focus on that for your strength, and then you're constantly working on technique because a tall person like 6'5" is gonna have a different like stroke rate and pull pattern than me. So like when you get taller, you have to figure out how to I guess change to benefit yourself better. And then also a good amount of swimming is mental based. I think they said like, I don't know if it was just a motivational speaker, but they just said it's like 90% mental, 10% physical. So if I just don't think I'm going to do good, then I'm not going to do good. Yeah.
So as you talk about getting taller, this generally happens as we get older. So as you have grown up, have you had to change your stroke and the pattern with which you swim because of that?
Yes, I have. I used to just move my arms as fast as possible and just hope I get to the wall first.
Sure.
That has not worked recently. I need to work more on, like I said earlier, grabbing deeper water, because it's just a different ball game, going with tempo versus technique. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like for Ethan having longer strides in track versus short, quick ones. That's my analogy for it. I don't know if that's a good one or not. Just
No, yeah, that works. Yeah. That's a really good way of thinking about it. And yeah, mental game seems to come in a lot with these sports related episodes we do, which is I forgot to mention earlier, but yeah, this is like at least our third entry into this. I'm going to call it a series now of sports related episodes about science. So we're happy that you're in this series, Evan.
thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Is there any other like yellow Buddha?
Yeah, Evan, I remember earlier you well, not today, but the other day you were talking about like how you had that training like clothing that you put on. So maybe.
So yesterday we were talking about topics for this podcast and drag came up. So I don't know too much about drag. We haven't gotten to that unit in physics. So what I understand from it is like, I wear an extra piece of clothing when I'm swimming. It's made it like a big mesh, pretty much a big mesh ball that I wear, and it grabs in as much water as possible. So it makes it harder for me to move. Yeah, I don't know much about drag, so I'm sorry I can't input much. But yeah, I wear a big mesh ball to make me go slower in practice.
I'm sorry. I've got a couple questions. So is
Uh-oh.
this no, these are all fine. I'm just trying to make sense of this. When you say you wear a big mesh ball, is it like a bodysuit, or like you are saying you actually have something like circular in shape that you are swimming with?
No, they're just like shorts.
Oh, so like they're poofy?
Yeah,
Okay. And you said this is only when you are practicing. So is this kind of like running with ankle weights or swinging a baseball bat with a donut on it? Like the idea being that you practice your stroke with more resistance so that when you take off the mesh training shorts, it is easier to swim?
yeah, it is. Uh, yeah, you like at practice, you want to go real slow, and then at the meet, when you're doing the same stroke, like putting the same effort in, you'll feel better when you're moving faster. And then also for like those more advanced meets, they make suits that repel water. So that also helps to it. I don't know what material they're made out of, but they're pretty cool.
Suits that repel water. That
Yeah,
sound, and those are legal?
yeah, they're expensive though.
I would bet.
So they're like hydrophobic material then?
Yeah,
That's interesting. And that helps with like reducing drag, I guess. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I watched another video about like swimming, and it had like a lot of Olympic athletes in the from like the 2016 Rio Olympics. And I remember them talking about how they worry about drag a lot. And this one athlete, I forget his name, but he said that he was trying to reduce his drag by he said in the past he would swim with his, like, at least in freestyle, he would just like kind of stroke like any regular person, and just that's how he was. But then to reduce drag in practice, he's been pushing his head closer to his neck, as like the neck or the arm that extends forward, to like reduce the space of his shoulder, which which like kind of prevents a whole area that would cut, like would attract drag. It like kind of just removes that space altogether. And so that's really interesting. Have you tried implementing that into your technique at all?
um, I've been told to do that. I never understood why. Now I do. Um, yeah, they just said
I think if we rewind the tape, I think Evan is subtly blaming me
I
for
don't.
his pitfalls, because he said we never learned about drag, which is we've never learned how to calculate drag. You're right, but I think Evan put that one on me. Evan, follow-up question related, because we've kind of talked about it in different ways, and the third law obviously makes sense. Have there been things in a science class like physics or maybe biology where you've been sitting there and you've gone, hey, this kind of relates to swimming a little bit, and made you think about the way that you do things?
Mostly physics, specifically because it was right in my face. But bio, there's also talk about like lung capacity. And I don't know much about like lung capacity. It was freshman year. I don't remember much. And then I I guess we worked a lot on lung capacity for like practice. You just try and go as far underwater as you can without breathing for like for reps of those. Yeah, I guess that's the only other thing that comes to mind when I think about science classes and swimming.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. Is there like a scientific way, or at least training method, that's like really interesting that you use to like build up lung capacity so that it's easier to like hold your breath longer? But yeah, you just answered that question. So that's really interesting and good.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, going back to drag, for sectionals, I force like the better swimmers on the aquadons to also shave all of their body hair. It reduces your drag, just because like it's never really helped me out much, but it is fun to do. So
Yeah, it's like a team bonding thing, right?
exactly. Well, you don't do
Yeah.
it together. Just
Well, yeah, but like doing it like one day and then coming back, that's
Yeah.
like it still works.
Evan, continuing the conversation of drag, which you started off by saying I know nothing about, and yet we continue to make you answer questions about. When I think of other high-end types of racing, like running or biking, there is some strategy to, the person at the head of the pack is taking a lot of the air resistance, and people are going behind them to try to sort of like catch pockets where they can minimize that and make their lives a little bit easier. As you swim next to people, is that a factor at all? Like, is there anything about like where you swim relative to the person next to you or strategy that comes into play at all with that?
yeah.
Oh, really?
At practice, whenever you swim behind someone, you'll notice that you go a lot faster and you catch up to them quicker.
Mhm.
And then like if you switch, the same thing happens. That's for practice, I've noticed. And then for meets, they're structured in a way to where the faster person is always in the middle of the pool and the slower people are like fanning out to the other sides. And I don't know like if this helps or not, but I've heard this before. Like water pushes against the sidewalls and then pushes back and ultimately like goes behind the person in the middle, and that helps them move forward faster. I don't know if that's true. It's just I've heard that.
Interesting.
So during meets with people, like I'm assuming you don't like get to choose your own lane, but is maybe like the middle lane reserved for like someone who's maybe not as fast? Because I know like in track, the lanes are like designated by like your speed. Like the fastest person, I think, gets like the closest lane to the middle or to the like the inside of the track, and then the slowest gets like the outside. Is it determined like that kind of in swimming?
No, they like to have the fastest person in the middle, give them the most advantage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
do
like
you get to swim in the middle, Evan?
I always swim in the middle for high
Man,
school.
did you hear that confidence? Wow.
Yeah, that's good. You're confident about it.
It's that 90% mental that he was talking about.
Exactly. Do you ever get like nervous before a meet? That like, or like, have you ever experienced a time where like you've gotten nervous? I mean, I don't know if you would have like while underwater and like kind of freaked out. Maybe I don't know. I was just thinking of the mental part, so I guess I had a question.
I've gotten nervous plenty of times. I think I missed state this year because I was too nervous for that one race. Yeah. And then like underwater, no, at that point, it's just instinct. I don't think about it too much.
That's good.
What kind of races do you do? Like, because there's ones that are just like, I don't really know how long they are, but isn't it just like one stretch? And then there's some that's like you go back to the original place.
Great question. Give us the basics, Evan.
All right, I got this. In swimming, there's generally categorized into two different groups of short distance and long distance. In high school swimming, short distance is like a 50, which is there and back, 100, which is there, back, and then a 200, which is double what I just said, so 8 times. And then the longest race in high school is a 500-yard swim, which is there back 20 times. No, there back 10 times, one way 20 times, if that makes sense. And then in USA swimming, there's a 1,000-yard and a mile-long race. You focus on different muscle groups depending on which one you're better at.
So, in the when you like go back, so you're pushing off the wall again, right?
Yeah. When you push off the wall, typically like when you're heading towards the wall, you're bringing a bunch of water with you, and then when you push off, you're trying to go underneath that. Yeah, if that's what you were asking.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you had like a certain method, like to lose like the least amount of momentum.
Not really. It's just trying to prevent the opposite forces from acting upon you when you push off that wall. Because like you kind of start your momentum over again. Because as soon as you hit that wall, it's kind of hard to bring into a circular motion and go back out in the opposite direction. You kind of have to start anew. Yeah.
That sounds difficult, honestly. Really
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah. I mean, coming from me, like I can't even swim. Like I can't fathom like doing this competitively. Like that's insane.
That's all I've ever known.
Well, that's good. Do you like it? Do you enjoy it, right?
Of course.
Well, that's good. um for the different techniques, are the races only, are they divided by only like distance, or they divide them by like the different strokes too, right?
Yeah, they divide it by different stroke a lot too. You won't see any stroke other than freestyle doing a longer race event. All the other ones are just sprints. Yeah, I'm a backstroker. It's pretty self-explanatory. I do the stroke that's on your back. Yeah, you focus on different muscle groups for that. Like I do back workouts when other people would do like chest or like biceps or triceps work. Yeah.
That's really cool. Sorry, for freestyle, is it just like by freestyle doing like any type of stroke you want, or is it only like, is there a stroke called freestyle? I just don't know.
So there's a freestyle stroke, but you're allowed to swim any stroke that you want for it. I don't know why you would want to do a mile long of butterfly, but you can.
Can you switch like back and forth if you wanted to?
No, as soon as you choose one stroke to start that race, you have to stick with it the whole time.
Do you have to declare it to like the officials, or do you just like just start with it?
Just
as soon as
go.
you go? Oh, okay.
I don't see why though, because freestyle is the fastest. So
I would say the why would probably be like, can you imagine how awesome of a move that would be to walk up to a judge and just go, I'm gonna do this butterfly, right? And the judge is like, why? I don't know why you're telling me or why you're gonna do it. And then you just jump in the water and do 200 meters of butterfly in a freestyle.
Sounds fun.
Check this out. I'm gonna do butterfly.
Maybe you could use it as like a mind game to your opponents before you jump in. You're like, I'm about to do this backstroke the whole way, and then they'll freak out. They have to do it, but then you actually don't, and then you win.
I'll still win. I don't
You
even need to
still
play.
win, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's just an idea.
They just
It's an
see
idea.
you swimming a different stroke and they're freaked out.
Yeah, exactly. Could you get disqualified if you change? You would get, if you change strokes, you'd get disqualified, right?
Yeah, if you change strokes mid-race and like the race wasn't allowing you to, then you get disqualified. There is a race they also hold the record for at Indy called the 200 individual medley, which is all 4 strokes that go back to back.
Oh, okay. You said only ND has that?
No,
That
I'm
type of
just saying
race?
I own the record for it. It's
Oh, that's good. Congrats again.
thanks.
But yeah, does anybody else have any comments for Evan or questions? No. I think that does it for this episode, everybody. Thank you, Evan, for coming on again.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Buddha, Mr. Og, as well. And we'll see you Wiseies later.